Great. Well, it's 3:30 and I am calling to order the January 23rd, 2024 Board of Waterworks Trustees Board meeting. First on the agenda for today is our consent agenda, which includes minutes from December 19, 2023 Board of Waterworks Trustees meeting, the minutes from the January 9th of this year Finance and Audit Committee meeting, and the minutes from the January 16th of this year Planning Committee meeting. Financial statements, list of payments for December 2023, summary of CEO approved expenditures in excess of 40,000, review and approve reserve funds investment policy, and review and approve the depositories for the Des Moines Waterworks funds, as well as our next meeting day of February 27th, 2024. Within that consent agenda, is there anything that we would like to pull out? Okay, then I'll look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next on our agenda is the public comment period. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak at this time? Ted, is there anything that you wanted to share under the public comment period?
Not today, Andrea, unless there are questions.
Okay. Then I would like to take a minute and kind of start the rest of our meeting off with some good news and celebration. Diane and I were lucky enough to be able to attend this year's awards banquet. And what I appreciate about this is because as we are trying to continue to grow a culture of family and connectedness and priority of our staff, seeing everyone come together and have such a great time was a good sight to see. But more than that, there was a lot of recognitions that night. We had, is it just 10? Those are only 10 new employees in attendance, but what is our total number of new employees?
It's probably double that, Doug.
Probably
25, maybe
25. So recruiting that many new folks to work with us, and then seeing our retirees and honor their service over the years. We had 12 in attendance there that we were able to recognize. And then service awards. 32 employees had 5-year milestone service awards. And then watching folks come up beyond that for 10 years and 20 years and 25 years and 35 years, and then our big 45-year milestone of service to the utility. And those numbers just kind of blow me away. To know how much somebody has appreciated and dedicated their life to the utility. And then in addition to that, recognizing those employees that have also continued to educate themselves and participate in the education programming here at the utility. There were 17 education awards that were recognized that evening. And so I just wanted to take the time to appreciate that here during our meeting, so staff knows how much we appreciate their service and their work. And that although Diana, Ann, and I were the only flappers there, we all here as a board recognize and are aware of the service and commitment that staff has made over the past year and many years before. So moving into our action items, and first on that list is the board to approve the proposed board policy manual revisions, the Central Iowa Waterworks trustees and committee member appointments.
Andrea, we have an attachment here that shows recommended policy manual revisions that would allow for appointment of trustees and additional trustees and committee members to Central Iowa Waterworks. This was presented and reviewed in some detail at the planning committee meeting last week, where all of the board members were in attendance. I will point out in the language that's on the following page that there was a suggestion that we put something into the language about make provision for guidelines and expectation setting for the representatives on the Central Iowa Waterworks Board. So that has been added. It's kind of the middle paragraph in those 3 paragraphs that are suggested to be added as section 212.3. And then section 302.4 is actually on the back, and it's just appointments to the technical committee and to the long range plan and capital improvements committee. Simply states that the CEO will make those appointments. So that's what we reviewed with that one addition. That's what we reviewed last week at the planning committee meeting, and we would recommend that the board approve those revisions to the board policy manual, of them effective immediately.
So I need a motion to approve the proposed revisions to the board policy manual with an implementation date of January 23rd, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving into the next item, item 3B is the election and appointment of initial Central Iowa Waterworks trustees and alternates. As we know, this is a monumental moment that we have approved the agreement, and now we're ready for the next steps of selecting our trustees and our alternates. Ted, is there any additional information you want to?
You know, Andrew, I don't really have anything else to add other than in accordance with the policy revisions that we just made. The board is now authorized to appoint trustees, additional trustee and alternates to those two, and then do that.
I know that we have the required action listed out as individual votes, but I will take a nomination for a slate if that is if it's appropriate and there's one that would like to be made.
I'll get us started here, and I think I first want to say, you know, obviously, yeah, this is a big day, and represents the culmination of a lot of hard work, much of which I had nothing to do with. So thank you all for both on the board and the staff who have worked hard on this, and the interest that has been shown to be part of this. I think I look at this as an opportunity to grow our representation as Des Moines Waterworks and continue our leadership with the community. And I think we have an amazing board, we have an amazing staff, and I think this will hopefully be a chance for us to continue to be leaders in Central Iowa on all this. So with that, I would like to make the following motion for the slate for initial trustee as Diane Muntz, as additional trustee Susan Hubert, and then as alternative trustee Amy. I'm blanking on your last name. Kaylor. I was like, where's her name?
Yeah.
And an alternate additional trustee as Ted Corrigan. I believe that the staff is well suited to serve in the additional alternate or in alternate capacity, ability to step in moments notice. I personally did not feel like I would have the capability to be able to serve as an alternate and maintain all duties here for Des Moines Waterworks. So I think staff is willing and capable to step in as needed. So sorry, I spoke within that, but that's my nomination motion.
So we have a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I'll start backwards with the alternates. I've voiced my concern about having staff members serve in this capacity, both either an alternate or as an appointed member. We wouldn't have staff members serve on this board. For instance, it's a policy-making board, much as CIWW is a policy-making board. CIWW is going to have at least 20-year contract with Des Moines Waterworks, and there is an inherent conflict of interest, if not a perceived conflict of interest, to have employees of Des Moines Waterworks serving in a potential voting capacity on Central Iowa Waterworks. So I would oppose any appointment of employees in those roles. They already are going to serve on the technical advisory committee, which makes perfect sense. But in this case, there is, as I say, an inherent conflict of interest, if not a perceived conflict of interest.
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
We don't have the duties of the alternate spelled out anywhere. In my mind, what the alternate does is attend meetings and vote when the trustee cannot be there. And also in my mind, if an alternate or if a trustee knows that the alternate will be required to be seated, it's their responsibility to brief the alternate on issues at hand and the positions that should be taken. I do think that, and I expect that both Amy and Ted will be at those meetings all the time and agree with Alex that for the continuity that they would be up to speed on those issues and ready to step in. But I really don't see it as anything but a position where one of the trustees is unable. And perhaps when we set out the expectations, we can be more clear on what the duties of the alternate are.
Just to clarify, in the absence of an appointee, the alternate would cast a vote.
Yes.
Okay, and that's where I think there's an error.
You know, and as we think about procedures and communications, I think we should, it should also be noted that if this becomes a long-term void, this board has the opportunity to rotate things around. And replace that alternate with another board member or someone else to ensure that that our staff alternates, if that's how the vote goes, is not a long-term trustee.
I mean, I would add, when it comes to the alternates, I mean, there's opportunity here to broaden our bench, if you will. And in my conversations with the mayor, I mean, that's an interest of hers in getting more people involved in this process. We are a small board of 5 people. And in these alternate capacities is an opportunity to bring people in from the community to serve, to get the knowledge, to then eventually either serve on CIWW or this board. And I would urge us to rethink the appointment of employees and think about people in the community who are willing to serve. I mean, I think there are lots of people out there. I didn't talk to them, but former Mayor County is a good example of somebody who might be willing to serve on in such a role, either as an appointee or others. But I think there's a lot more people out there that can serve in this capacity on the alternates. I'll stop talking about the alternates.
Well, I'll take responsibility in that. So I think we spent a lot of time focusing on our trustees and didn't put much effort into recruiting alternates. And at this point, needing to move forward and knowing that we have capable, experienced, and folks that have the ability to attend those meetings and make decisions in the best interest of the utility. We have found Amy and Ted. I think that there's definitely an opportunity in the future if we are able to identify other folks that would make sense and be willing. That may be something that we can revisit.
One of the alternates, I'll talk to the other ones unless anybody else wants to talk about the alternate piece. That's right. Alec, can you, maybe it makes sense, because you talked about the importance of these appointments, maybe talk a little bit about your thought process on why Diane and Sue are the appropriate appointees at this time.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of work that's been done through their commitment to working with the other utilities and bringing this together and being able to leverage that expertise in those relationships. And I think that that's been something that will be a continued good step for Des Moines Waterworks going forward in our relation to Central Iowa Waterworks. And yeah, it wasn't, I know it's been difficult to understand who all wants to be involved and what the best path forward is. So that's in conversations and my looking at this, I also know one of the things we've talked about is diversifying this board. I think the opportunity for Sue's term to be ending next year, that gives us the chance to bring on somebody new. One of my priorities was trying to fill, I think it's easier to onboard people onto this board, which is a little more established than Central Iowa Waterworks, which is going to be, I think, a lift for even the experienced members who are joining that board. So that was my rationale, and it seemed like that was a good path forward. But yeah,
I appreciate that. I mean, I think there's been some talk at this board, but I think for people in this room, people listening to the public to understand, Sue and Diane, you've met in what's been described as the micro group for a long time, right? I mean, pre-pandemic. I mean, it was, when did that micro group start meeting? During the pandemic, so a long time. And the micro group was made up of Sue and Diane and Jody Smith from West Des Moines and blanking on John's last name, John Kuhn from Urbandale. McCune, thank you. And who else? That was it, 4 of you? It's a micro group.
There were staff.
And the staff.
Sometimes there was staff there.
No, there was always.
There was always staff there.
Yeah.
And who was the staff that was there in the micro group?
Ted and Amy and
I think he's talking about two different things, the mini micro group versus the micro group. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, so explain the difference between that. That's helpful.
Sure, there was a group of leaders from Urbandale, West Des Moines, and Des Moines Waterworks that would meet, and that was staff, and that was Diane and I would meet. And then in between there were, I would say, areas of misunderstanding and disagreement. And so we would need to try to better understand what those things would be with the individuals just from the utility. And that would be Diane, Jody Smith, John McCune. And those would be issues that, as we saw that they came up, there could be a glaring issue like on the 28E. We would really try to talk through what does that mean and why is that important to you? And here's why it's important to us. And this is a line in the sand where we can't really go there. So really 2 different meetings just.
No, that makes sense. So the mini micro group met on a pretty regular basis, right? I mean, you guys got together. Like on a monthly basis? Almost?
Just as needed.
As needed, but quite a bit and work through issues. And, you know, I think that, and you reported back to this board, I think on a regular basis about those meetings and the discussions which were going on in those meetings. You know, I think maybe those were helpful meetings, but as we move into CIWW, one of my concerns is that it could, there again, could be a perception that mini micro group is interested in running the new Central Iowa Waterworks, and that we're, forwarding a slate of people. Because I believe both John McCune and Jody Smith have already been appointed by their respective entities, and now, the 4 members of that mini micro group are going to be represented there, and so, I had some interest in having diversity and having a different voice on that. In those meetings, were there any agreements that were made that we should be aware of? I mean, was there any agreement about who should chair Central Iowa Waterworks, for instance, or any discussion about who should chair Central Iowa Waterworks?
Not in the meetings of mini micro.
No, that's good. So I mean, if this board were to, and just hypothetically, this board were to say, to have a vote and say that, it's our interest to have, let's pick one of the members that's been appointed, Mayor John Edwards from Clyde be chair of Central Iowa Waterworks. Is that something that both of you could carry forward and vote on?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think that we elect our representatives and they go to the board or they go to the Central Iowa Waterworks. I think we need to set out the roles and responsibilities of those people. But I really think that we need to put some trust in those people. There are things that I believe very much need to come back to this board. I believe that those are policy considerations, things that will impact our customers. That we can, we know that those are of interest to this board, and we very much want to come back and find out. But the workings of that board and who is the chair and committee appointments, I don't see those coming back for this board taking a position on those things. I think those are things that will be worked out by the representatives who have been elected to that board. So we don't have those roles and responsibilities set out, but that's what I think. I mean, I think that we've had other appointments to boards, and we don't usually send those people saying, here's who we want to be chair, or here's how we want that, or those kinds of things. We put some trust in our representatives that they will adequately represent the interests of the Waterworks Board and of the citizens.
With this being a new, I mean, this is a new journey for all of us. We may be trying to compare it to WRA or DART or whatever it may be. And we may be trying to draw analogies along the way, but I do believe that this is a different animal, and developing those policies and procedures and trying to understand, because of the nature of this animal and because it so directly impacts not just something that we might be a part of, but something that we are definitely tied to. It is vital that we figure out where those lines are, and it may be different there may be pieces of it that are different than other boards, and there may be pieces that are the same. And I think that we need to that's probably our next step, is to get going on that immediately, so we can be clear from day one how this, how our appointees there will interact with this board. Because I do think that we all, being so close to the development of this new organization and playing such a strong role in the creation of that 2080, all have interest in seeing how things play out, from the big things to the small things. And some small things may be of greater magnitude, although they may not seem that way at the time. And so I do think that that's our immediate next step.
And I can say I've been nominated to be one of the trustees and I would feel much more comfortable going into that role with having those responsibilities spelled out and the interaction with this board.
So along that same line, I mean, one of the first jobs that the new board is gonna have to undertake is hiring an executive director. Is that something that is left to the discretion of the appointees, or is that something that's gonna be discussed with this board?
I don't see that as something that would come back to this board at all, because we don't even know. We don't have a job description for that individual. We don't know if the executive committee would be the search committee. We don't know if there would be a group from CIWW that would be part of the search. None of that's really been outlined, but I don't see CIWW having to bring whatever entity that is doing the search, having to bring that back to each community, vote on the CEO or general manager.
No, I'm asking if the appointees, you as appointee would bring that back to this board for discussion.
But we don't know the involvement of the representatives. We don't know how that is going to be selected yet.
Well,
You know, in my mind, I mean, there's a difference between, do you need to bring that back for a formal vote of this group before going ahead, or getting informal input and advice? I mean, I think as a trustee, I would be very open always to
Right.
to phone calls and advice and input from members of this board on what. So, but I think that there's a difference between that and which things need to formally come back for a vote.
so which things do need to come back for a vote?
Well, that's what has not been.
But clearly not these two things.
Well, I don't think we've had these things laid out. You know, if I'm a trustee and those roles and responsibilities are laid out and agreed to by this board at a date after this, no matter what they are, I will abide by them. Because that's how it works.
Well, I've expressed my concern about the alternates. I think there's an inherent and perceived conflict of interest there. I am more than concerned that the mini micro group has met privately for a long period of time. And whether it's a perceived or actual alliance there that's going forward, I fear that information among that four is more important than information shared with this board. And I think we're sending a wrong signal by making these appointments. I think we're starting down a road where we've already been told by the potential appointees that when it comes to the selection of the chair and the selection of the executive director, we can feel free to call them and give them advice, but we're not going to be consulted.
That's not what I said. That is not what I said. What I said was, that's my position on that, and I get to take a position because I'm a voting member of this board on what responsibilities are, but I went further and said, but if this board wants to define those responsibilities differently, I will honor that. And I never said that I wouldn't do that.
Fair enough. You know, I have a concern. There's a meeting that I've heard of that's been called for the end of this month, I believe January 29th. And it's been called, correct me if I'm wrong, but the instigator of that meeting is Jody Smith from West Des Moines, and he's calling together members who have been appointed. CIW doesn't exist today. We haven't signed the document. There is no board. When CIWW does exist, it will be a public body that needs to meet in public, where records are taken. A meeting such as the meeting on January 29th is inappropriate. It's ahead of CIWW being formed. It reminds me of the mini micro group in that it's a group of people who are going to meet behind closed doors and discuss things and make up their minds. I would encourage that if these appointees are approved today, they not attend the meeting on the 29th because it is inappropriate. It also, again, is part of the reason why I'm voting no today. I think there is, again, whether it's perceived or actual, the fact that this mini micro group feels that it is in charge and members of that group are calling meetings as if they've been elected chair, it's inappropriate. It sends the wrong signal to the community. As a believer in public meetings and openness in government, it disturbs me greatly. I will vote no on this motion.
Can I speak to the meeting later this month? Since it's been
Yeah.
brought up. If you looked at the items that are on there, they are all ministerial items. And it's very clear in that correspondence that these are items like time of meeting, place of meeting, but that they will be something to get going. And if anybody wants to change it or anybody disagrees or anything, none of those things will be have action taken until the first meeting of the sitting representatives. But you know, I don't know if you know, Graham, I put one of these together before. I put together a 13 state cooperative organization. And if you're gonna wait without having a group of people to move things along, you're gonna be way down the line.
Sure.
And we want this thing to be up and moving on January 1st. But we are respectful of other people and say, we're gonna get these things going, but they are only temporary and they are only if people agree and ratified during the first meeting. They are not, some of those things are temporary things, but they are a way to get started. And if you read that list of what's in there, there are no policy decisions.
I have not had the opportunity to read that list. I don't know what correspondence you're talking about or who it's been sent to.
Apparently you do because you're
Now,
talking
all I've been
about it.
told was by Andrea and Ted that there was a meeting.
Well, you can get a copy of that.
Who sent the correspondence and who did they send it to?
Jody sent it out to all of the communities. I'm sure Ted has a copy.
And were you supposed to share that with your board, Ted?
I wasn't aware that I was supposed to share it with the board.
I don't think there's any problem with sharing it with the board.
But see, here's my problem. It wasn't shared with the board. It was shared with a select group of people. A select group of people are making decisions and not including all of the communities or all of the members. Not all of the members of this board were included, and I guarantee you not all of the members of the communities were included. Warren Rural Water hasn't even decided whether it's joining or not.
Correct.
And there's a meeting being called to plan for what's going to happen. CIWW hasn't been formed, and there's a meeting being called supposedly by anointed chair Jody Smith to get this thing together. It's inappropriate. And again, is why I think we need a different representative, somebody that's going to stand up and say, maybe the mini micro group shouldn't be in charge all the time.
I will share, or I will add, Graham, that those concerns about the perception of a collaboration that is not beyond those communities has also been one that I've had. And I've expressed that to all of the board members here today at some point in time, that I want to ensure that moving forward that we are cognizant of that perceived or actual reality of this alliance between those groups, because this is a brand new blank slate of an organization that has, you know, a dozen or so members of it, all who are investing to be a part of this regional utility. And we need to ensure that we are being collaborative with all of those members and hearing all of their voices and taking all of their concerns into consideration. And you know, I continue to express that and ask that it is kept top of mind. And that to allay further concerns, that we err on the side of more communication rather than less. With that being said, I know that all of the people who have shown interest in being representatives to this board have the experience and the skill sets, the capabilities, and have along the way, I don't know, what are we, 12 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, I don't know, have all played a significant role in getting us to this day. And that should be noted above and beyond. And this has been very challenging part of my tenure of chair to get us to move forward with this next step. And it's disappointing because it shouldn't have been. It shouldn't have been my most challenging task. And but I think that all of the concerns shared are from employees to the representation to the communications and procedure are all real and valid concerns that I hope that whoever moves forward today keeps in the forefront of their mind as they move as they represent not my day job, as they represent Des Moines Waterworks, as they continue to make the ratepayers their primary focus, and that they, you know, serve us well representing our utility.
I just want to say, because it's relatively new information tonight that's striking me. I mean, the fact there's correspondence, there's some sort of a meeting agenda that's been sent out to a select group of people should trouble anyone that is interested in public meetings. There is a small group of people who are getting together to decide the fate of the new regional entity, and they're doing this outside of the public light. That is a problem. We should all be concerned about that, and we shouldn't let it happen.
I think you need to see the correspondence, and I would encourage Ted to send it to you. There are no policy decisions in there. It is all ministerial action to get the thing up and going. There is no sitting board.
And to establish
Where
a
did the
leadership.
board, how is the board? There, no leadership is not established.
How much disruption is it for the sake of appearances, for the sake of inclusion, to push that back into February?
I don't know how that is disruptive. It's delay, but
Well, we're used to delays here with regionalization. As
We
I
don't have
said-
an entity, right? I mean, at this
No,
point,
we
we haven't
don't
signed
have-
a document.
That's correct. So we're in this period between then and here. So we've had a community say, we're gonna wait till the end of February. So then what do we wait until March until we have that? And then,
Is it the end of February? I thought the last one was gonna be on Valentine's Day or thereabouts.
the 12th and the 13th are the two scheduled meetings where Warren and Grimes are gonna vote respectively.
And maybe that's a little bit of a sense of urgency to them, knowing that there's been a meeting scheduled for February 15th. That they need to make the decision and not table it again. Is it, I mean, at that point, we're talking less than 10 days, no. 15, we're talking about 15, 16 days of a delay, 2 weeks of a delay. Is it possible to have that conversation?
sure,
And also, I would encourage and ask that if any meeting is held, it is treated like a public meeting, where it is posted as a public meeting. The agenda is posted, it is open to the public, it is recorded for people to listen to. These are going to be appointed and are appointed members to a public body. They should behave that way. And so I would ask that regardless of when the meeting happens, that it's treated like a public meeting.
And that would be, I would agree with that and ask that be discussed as well. Any other comments on the motion?
I think I'll, to a couple Graham's concerns, I hear on the staff side, I hear concerns. I kind of like Diane said, I didn't envision this as being something that they'd be actively serving in a capacity. I would expect our representatives to be there. So much more of an emergency basis as to make sure that we have coverage and knowledgeable coverage. And I think that some of the concerns around the small working groups, many micro groups that I don't fully, that much predate my time on the board. I don't fully understand. I think I get the concern that there could be, who's working in whose best interest, but as my understanding is this is also the group that has helped bring us to this agreement. And so if we're signing an agreement that's developed by these same individuals, I don't know why we would suspect otherwise that it would be acting in the best interest of our larger metro community as a whole, and that there is going to be probably some herky jerkiness to getting the new board up and running, established, and getting all the communities to move at the same speed, which will be difficult at the beginning, but I think the point around making sure the public is well heard and pointed out.
Happening right now.
So I guess those are my thoughts around the concern that I appreciate Graham you bringing them up and speaking. Freely.
Any other comments or questions? All right, then I will call for the vote. We have a motion of a nominated slate on the floor table. With Diane serving as the primary trustee, Sue as the second additional trustee, Amy Kaler as the first alternate, and Ted Corrigan as the second alternate. Can this be an all together vote, or do we need a roll call vote, or I guess that's a John question, or does it matter?
I think that's up to the board if or board chair, if you want to call for just vote of the group. Otherwise, if somebody wants a roll call.
We will do a group vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
All right, my computer has shut down, so it's gonna take me a minute here. Okay, here we are. All right. Item 3C is to receive and file the 2024 strategic plan initiatives and KPIs.
Andrea, in 2021, Des Moines Waterworks went through a facilitated strategic planning process with HDR Incorporated, and each year since that strategic plan was developed, the senior management team and supervisors in the utility have met in a workshop format to establish what our areas of focus and our KPIs would be for the year. The board received an update on the 2023 KPIs and our progress at the Finance and Audit Committee meeting this month, and the proposed 2024 strategic plan initiatives and KPIs are included in the board packet today. I will note that we have maintained our focus on the 5 value areas that were established as part of the original strategic plan, those being employee experience, customer experience, leadership, stewardship, and IDEA, or inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. The group met and established focus areas and KPIs under each of those value areas for the coming year. Those are listed in the packet. There are 12 KPIs in the various focus areas, with at least one focus area under each of the value areas. I'm happy to elaborate on any of those that the board would like to hear about. Otherwise, we're asking that the board today simply receive and file proposed KPIs for 2024.
Is there a motion to receive and file the 2024 strategic plan initiatives and key performance indicators?
So, second,
I will just say that I appreciate this coming to the board and to bring it to our attention, make us more aware and included in setting these and watching these be fulfilled as we move forward throughout the year, and look forward to seeing the progress made. Any other questions or comments?
yeah, I had a couple questions. One was on the recruitment. KPI, it says fill 80% of open positions within 60 days of posting. What is the percentage of open positions that are filled within 60 days now?
Doug, can you help me with that number?
I'm just interested because if we have a KPI that says 80%, you would assume that that would be a goal that we would stretch towards. And if we don't know today what we're doing, then is this a stretch or is this just
Yeah, we're over 70%. Probably it's 70% or higher, so it's trying to make that a stretch to 80%.
And along those same lines in KPI 4, reduce the number of customers relying on estimated billing. What is our, what's the number of customers that are getting estimated bills? What percentage is that?
Today, we're about 6%.
That is a stretch. That is a stretch goal.
Wow.
And I would offer on both of those, Diane, that the time it's been taking us the last couple of years because of the issues that we're having with recruitment and filling positions, that's been a real challenge for us. And positions have been open in some cases for months.
Yeah.
So it's an important area of focus. And the same is true with the estimates. We ran into an issue during the pandemic where we couldn't get into houses to make repairs. And then there was a microchip shortage, and we have literally customers who have been receiving estimates for more than a year. And sometimes when we get them repaired, they have a big catch-up bill, and we've had some real concerns over that. So it's an important area of focus. Both of those are intended to be stretch goals for the coming year.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments? Then we have a motion and a second to receive and file. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, moving on to item 3D, which is the request authorization for CEO and general manager to execute agreement for professional services for SCADA or SCADA System Master Plan.
Yeah. Andrea, in 2022, we did an inventory and assessment of our current SCADA system to get a good documentation of the current state. And we have that now. What we're here today to do is request permission to execute an agreement for our SCADA System Master Plan that will support our long-term goal of updating and modernizing our SCADA system. Staff developed a request for qualifications for our SCADA System Master Plan. We had 5 respondents to that request for qualifications. Those proposals were evaluated based on the project team, firm experience, schedule, project approach, and estimated hours. Two of the consultants, Black and Beach and HDR, were selected to come in for more in-depth interviews and discussion with the team. Ultimately, staff is recommending that a professional services agreement be executed with HDR for completion of the SCADA system master plan with an estimated cost of approximately $416,000. So we would ask that the board authorize execution of this professional services agreement.
Okay, I need a motion to authorize the CEO and general manager to execute a professional service agreement with HDR Engineering in the amount of $416,911 for the SCADA system master plan.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item number 3E is to request authorization for CEO and general manager to execute agreement for professional services for the 2024 Northeast Booster Station.
Andrea, the existing Southeast Polk Bond Rant pumping station, which serves an unincorporated area of Polk County, kind of north of Ankeny, and also the city of Bond Rant, is reaching the end of its useful life, and it is also too small to serve projected demands in that area. Staff has been working with representatives from Bond Rant, discussing a joint booster station and feeder main project that will benefit both entities and provide the capacity that we need long-term. Bond Rant will need until they finish construction of their new treatment facility. It has been agreed that we're going to kind of divide and conquer this project, and Des Moines Water Works will take the lead on designing booster station and getting it installed. And Bond Rant is actually going to take the lead on having the feeder main design and getting that installed. All of that will be outlined in the upcoming 28-day agreement. In an effort to get the design work started on the booster station, staff developed a request for qualifications. Similar to the last item, we had 5 respondents, although different respondents for the most part. The proposals were evaluated based on the same criteria. Staff is recommending that a professional services agreement be executed with Veenstra and Kim, which just happens to be the same consultant that Bond Rant selected to do the feeder main, which is good because there'll be great coordination there. Estimated cost of this design work, $248,000 on a $2.5 million.
Okay, I need a motion to authorize the CEO and general manager to execute a professional service agreement with Veenstra and Kim in the amount of $248,700 for the 2024 Northeast Booster Station.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 3F is to request authorization to reimburse the city of Des Moines for water main replacement for the 2nd Avenue reconstruction from University to the Des Moines River project.
Andrea, the city of Des Moines is repaving, reconstructing completely, really 2nd Avenue from University all the way north to the Des Moines River. As part of that project, Des Moines Water Works is going to replace the water main from University up to Franklin, which is just south of the river there. Saves us money in terms of surface removal and restoration. It's a good deal for us, and then it gets a new main under their pavement. The city has bid the project. They're planning to build it over 2 years in 24 and 25. Based on the unit prices bid for the estimated quantities, it looks like the Des Moines Water Works portion of the project will cost about $2.6 million. Synergy Contracting is going to do the work for the city. They'll also do water main. We're requesting permission to reimburse the city for that work once it's done.
So is there a motion to authorize staff to reimburse the city of Des Moines for water main replacement included in the 2nd Avenue reconstruction from University to the Des Moines River project?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments on this item?
Ted, how old is the main that's being replaced?
Great question. I don't know the answer to that. I know that it's a main. I did talk to Mike Zock a little bit about it. He said it was a main that we are interested in replacing. It isn't one that we're just replacing because they're there, but I don't know the date of installation.
I don't have a date either, so I might be able to get to it.
And is it? Just a question. Does the traffic of the road influence that at all? I mean, Second Avenue is heavily used by trucks, and heavy vehicles, or the mains deep enough that doesn't matter.
The mains are deep enough that that really doesn't matter. The traffic load certainly affects the street and how often it has to be replaced and whatnot. Caitlin, did you get a number there? 1919.
Whoa.
It's a good year.
Yeah, it's just a year or two. But it doesn't necessarily affect the water main and the breaks. That has way more to do with the soil types and actually the age of the pipe. Some of the pipe that age is in pretty good shape, but it's always good to to replace one that's 100 plus years.
Nice job, Caitlin.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do that as a historical thing done. I have to get permission.
Let's just not ask any. Historically significant.
Okay, so any other questions or comments? Motion, oops, and second, on the table, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Moving on to item 3G, request authorization to solicit bids for the 2023 Des Moines Water Main Replacement Contract 2 and establish the date of the public hearing as the date of February 2024 board meeting.
Andrea, as part of the approved budget in 2023, the streets that are listed here in the memo were scheduled for replacement. The plans and specifications for doing that replacement are nearing completion, and we're here today to look for permission to bid. I do want to note that the city of Des Moines, as part of our design process and working with them, has asked us to do a few additional things, including some asphalt overlay and curb replacement on Richland Drive and lane striping and storm sewer intake replacement on Guthrie Avenue. The city is going to reimburse us for that. We're doing that as part of our project. The engineer's estimate for this project is 5.3 million. Most of that will be our responsibility as part of the main replacement. The city is going to reimburse us about 76,000 for some of the work that they've asked us to address while we're in the area. We're asking today for permission to solicit bids for this project.
Hey, can I have a motion to authorize staff to solicit bids for the 2023 water main replacement? Contract 2 and establish the date of the public hearing as stated and direct staff to publish notice as provided by law.
So moved.
Second.
Question. So, this is at Southeast 14, it's not Fluor Drive. There's some pretty large streets here that are gonna disrupt people. Could you just, for anyone that's listening in, review how it is we notify customers that are in those areas of the disruption, the time frame? Because in the past, your engineering staff's done a great job of doing that. I think it's important for people to know how they are notified.
Yeah, so I'm gonna ask Mike to back me up here. I'll take a swing at it and Mike help me out if I miss anything, but for the specific properties that are in the area of construction, they will receive a direct mail letter that will explain the process and the timeline and what's gonna happen. Oftentimes there'll also be a meeting in the area, in the neighborhood, with the citizens or the business owners in some of these cases because of the busyness of these roads, having the opportunity to go and understand what the timeline is, what they can expect. It is interesting to me that when we go in and start replacing water main on a street, especially a residential street, typically it's more devastation than anyone has ever seen in their front yard before in their whole life. So they're kind of surprised by that. We tell them that typically right up front, this is gonna look like a big deal, but we do it every year, we put it back. Can you give them examples of streets where we were last year or 2 years ago? They can look at it, see it. It does get back to normal. So there's a process that we go through. And the other thing I would note is that there's a pretty significant amount of effort put into traffic control, ensuring that there's still reasonable movement through the construction area and access to the homes and businesses. And if they're gonna be blocked off, let them know. And Mike, did I miss anything there?
I don't think so. It starts with all that pre-construction communication, trying to paint a picture of what they're gonna experience. And then being present, through construction, through inspector or even an engineer being assigned a dating and stuff.
I hear compliments from customers about Des Moines Waterworks and the communication plan. And since so many of these by the map appear to be in the same general area, one is not. I think it's important for people to know, the links you go to communicate. Thank you.
Neat. Any other questions or comments? Well, go ahead and vote. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Item 3H is the 2023 Des Moines Water Main Replacement Contract 3.
This is a public hearing. Andrea.
Oh, it is it? All right. Well, then I will go ahead and open the public hearing and ask for comments from the public regarding the form of contract, plan, specifications, and estimated cost. Is there any public here, either in person or online, to speak to this? I'm gonna assume no. Ted, have you received any?
We have not received any comments on this.
Then I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion to adopt the form of contract, plan, specifications, and estimated cost.
Second.
There, we did okay, we'll go ahead and take a vote. Thank you all. All in favor of the motion on the table, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, can we have an analysis of the bids received?
Absolutely, Andrea. The board authorized staff to bid this project in December. Plans and specifications were taken out by a number of contractors and 5 bids were received on the 16th of January. Got competitive bids and very good bids. Actually, the engineer's estimate for this contract was just slightly over $3 million. And the low bid was submitted by a J&K Contracting LLC, the amount of $2.44 million. So staff recommends that the board award the contract to J&K Contracting.
All right. So do I need then another motion to award the 2023 Des Moines Water Main Replacement Contract 3 project in the amount of $2,440,000 to J&K Contracting LLC and authorize the chairperson and CEO and general manager to execute the contract?
Second.
Any comments or questions on that?
Do we have any sense on? All happy to see whatever my number math is, quite a significant discount compared to the estimate. Where those, what's driving some of that? Do we have breakdowns on that? Materials, labor, like, et cetera?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. Competition, there isn't as much work available as there has been the last couple of years. I think pricing is just sort of ranking itself a little bit. I would expect that the contract we just authorized for bid probably be a little lower than it was estimated to, because we're just seeing a trend of more competition and declining prices. But I from my perspective, it's as much as anything, it's just kind of a righting of the ship. There's so much work and the prices got so high, and now there's a normal amount of work. Prices are getting more. Lindsay, would you agree with that?
Yeah, that's what I think the price.
hoping that applies to the previous action item. We'll see in a month.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
I,
Any opposed? Right.
Public hearing. Item
Yeah,
I.
we have another public hearing moving into the ground lease agreement with USCO of Greater Iowa LLC at the Tenny Standpipe. I'll go ahead and open the public meeting and ask for comments from any that are here to speak online or in person.
We've received no written comments.
Okay. Then I will close the public hearing and look for a motion to authorize the board chair or vice chair and the CEO and general manager to execute the ground lease agreement with USCOC of Greater Iowa LLC at the Tenny Standpipe site.
Before you vote on that, I do just want to note, Vern Rash put in tremendous amount of work on this for the last 3 or 4 years, so he's not here, but I think we should recognize that.
I think we should also recognize that we've had these cell tower agreements for 25 years or so. That's kind of when they started. And we've learned a lot. Vern learned most of it. But he has done a great job in working with others in engineering, including Mike. He's done a great job of putting provisions into this newest lease agreement that benefit Des Moines Waterworks and frankly ensure that we get the benefit that we thought we were going to get from leasing our land to begin with. And they're kind of enumerated there. But there's a termination clause, there's liability insurance, reimbursement for legal and administrative costs, which is huge. Now that's above and beyond what they pay us in rent, which frankly, some of the rent was chewed up in legal and administrative costs historically, annual increases. And a longer term agreement, which is good for both sides. But the agreement is here and it's.
Absolutely recognition of Vern and the efforts that have been made to get us to this place and give us a template for similar lease agreements moving forward. We do have a motion and second, so we'll go ahead and vote. All in favor, say aye.
I,
Aye. Any opposed? That brings us to our information items, our board committee reports. We have the Finance and Audit Committee.
So we reviewed the 2023 KPIs, which was given a variety of staff gave summary on that. I don't know, we probably don't have that. Is it in the packet at all?
The minutes from the meeting
Minutes,
are in
okay.
the packet, but I don't think we have the document.
I'm probably not the best one to speak to all the details of all the KPIs. I think, it seemed to me to be an honest assessment of where we succeeded, where we did not quite meet our target. I think one of the biggest ones that we fell short on was the Riverbend pilot project, which was an unfortunate
Lead service line.
lead service replacement and not being able, and there's probably several causes, and I think probably some self-reflection we can do as an organization as to how we can improve in serving and communicating in those communities, which will be difficult, but overall, I appreciate adherence to setting a plan, how we're gonna measure ourselves and going back, measuring against ourselves, and an honest assessment, I felt like, so thank you to Ted and staff. Want to add any additional comments, please go for it.
I think you covered it pretty well, but we can certainly make sure that everyone gets a copy of the kind of final outcomes of all those. Because we did meet several of them, but not all, but that shows that they are stretch goals and some things we aspire to, and if we met them all, we might wonder if they were too easy. But we'll make sure that we get that shared so that everyone has a chance to see what we did accomplish in 2023.
All right, next we have the Planning Committee.
Fortunately, all of the board members were at the meeting. We covered the selection process update for our consultants, and, you know, thank you to the staff for putting that on. It was excellent. I think we continue to see new ways that we can approach this, especially when we're going to be having additional work we think that's going to be coming our way. I thought it was interesting that, I believe you asked the question, Alex, about did Alex ask the question about will we have lower costs as we continue to award these consultant contracts?
I don't remember.
Anyway, at the time, someone on the board asked the question, and I think your answer was maybe, you know, we would think that if they know there's a set amount of work coming. I thought that was interesting. We covered the selection process for CIWW, and then Kyle Danley gave us an overview, I guess, of what was to come. I think that day we had 11 main breaks, if I remember from your report, and it only increased from there as we started to watch the link that Ted provided to all of us. So I'm sure Ted will give us an update on that, but thank you for that. I think we all need to just be aware of that as we're passing these trucks and crews in the middle of the night. So 11, yeah, that was a lot. That was it.
Greater Des Moines Botanical Garden Board.
One thing I'd report is after our meeting last month, I notified the CEO and the chair of the board that at the end of my term as our representative, as Moines Waterworks representative to the Botanical Garden Board, that we will vacate part of the seat.
Great,
And that's December 31st this year.
perfect. Appreciate that. As for the Des Moines Waterworks Park Foundation, you can see in the attached information packet from them, the upcoming concerts that have been scheduled and the programming. I think the highlights of this past month's meeting is the review of the finances and the successful year that they have had. And as well as noting the term turnover. Quite a few of the original folks or the folks that have been on the Park Foundation board for quite some time are leaving, with many new faces coming in. But in particular, that black numbers of a positive year, I think should be of note to us as we continue to work with them in their depreciation fund and their relationship with the utility. I don't know, Mike, Pat or Mike, if there's anything that you would also like to add from the last meeting.
I have nothing to add.
Somewhat related to the Park Foundation, I would like to recognize and appreciate the work that the Water Curia has done that is located within the park, and the success of their recent Polk County grant to kind of launch that fundraising effort and the PR that they've received recently from their work. So that will be a fine addition, a destination within the park itself.
I appreciate that. I will report that all 5 Polk County supervisors and the county manager, they're very excited about the project. It was a pleasure to work with them. Obviously, it's a pleasure to get $100,000 too. But that's a real vote of confidence from them. They're excited about it, and they're not. You know, they've all voiced independently and in the meetings we had jointly with some of them, interest in collaborating in other ways. And Ted knows, I mean, the interest in the Citizens Water Academy, the Waterworks runs, and thinking about how that grows and how we put that into other things. Polk County and Polk County Conservation too, but Polk County itself has a real interest and commitment in that. And they all voiced that they don't see this as the Water Cure as a standalone.
Well, I think that ties in nicely to our strategic plan goals of continuing to be an educator and leader within the community. So wins all around.
There you go.
Leading us to item B, the CEO and general manager's comments.
Andrea, as Sue predicted, I wanted to share an update on water main breaks. We had a pretty rough week there one week. We had almost 30 water main breaks in a week, and I think we're approaching 40 for the month, which is a lot of breaks. We had staff out around the clock 24/7 for almost an entire week. They did a great job of getting everything patched back up and getting everyone back in service. And I'm happy to report that things have slowed down, even starting Friday. But Saturday, we didn't have any breaks, which was great for the awards banquet, so people could stay and enjoy. A couple on Sunday, and we've had a couple each day this week, but that's pretty manageable for the crews. So the extreme cold definitely had an effect, and that water temperature, we're producing kind of cross that threshold where we tend to see some break. The only other thing I would share is it's kind of a fun thing that I saw. The business record, I got their book of lists. They do that, I think, every year, and it's kind of a fun little list. But one of the things I saw in there that was that Des Moines Waterworks is listed as the 10th oldest business in Central Iowa. So history there. And we are, we made the list. We were high on the list in that case. It was about the only list we made. But
Being old.
yeah, I'm getting used to being on
I see,
that
why aren't they
list.
paying attention to that water main or that,
Yeah, our
line there?
historic line. The last thing I'll point out is that we do have a safety update, and this month's update has some initial figures. Thankfully, we haven't had any injuries yet this year. Let's hope we can continue that trend. We did finish last year with 8 recordable injuries, which is of course more than we'd like to have, but there's a nice chart in there that shows that even though we had 8, that was about half as many as we had last year, which is good. And we're continuing on a downward trend, so more focus there to come as we continue to work to improve our safety. So that's it for me. Unless there are questions.
I think I pointed this out during our update too, but I would not to give us more credit. I would say, you know, where this is safety trend doesn't account for the fact that we're pumping more water, building a lot
Have more employees.
have more employees and more hours worked. So I think there's more improvement than this graph shows, and that's great.
Yeah,
Hopefully we can continue to build on that.
it's a great point though, Alex, that we have significantly more employees.
Any other questions or comments for Ted? Then the last item we have here is the contract status and professional services agreements. And hopefully you all had the opportunity to look at that. But with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Great. Thank you. I got 12 minutes. Plenty of time to sign.
So glad to see you. We have great performance board. I was